What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. Got a highly anticipated UK heavyweight clash going down this Saturday featuring young, undefeated contender Daniel Dubois facing off against not so young, but still undefeated, strong amateur pedigree Joe Joyce. This fight is a very much anticipated fight. A lot of people have been waiting on this fight to take place. The fight was actually signed to take place 8 months ago, but due to delays and coronavirus, this fight has now got pushed back to November 28th, and we're 1 day away from this much anticipated matchup featuring two young undefeated fighters. And I mean young as far as ring experience. Joe Joyce is 33 years old, so he's not a spring chicken, but when you look at the fights he's had professionally, he's inexperienced and young in that regard. But Daniel Dubois is young in age and young in resume, as his resume is not strong at all. He's fought absolutely nobody. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. His resume is thin, thinner than synthetic oil. It's very thin, very thin. But the guy has been slated as the next great British heavyweight champion to come on the scene, getting a lot of the fanfare that Anthony Joshua got, a lot of the fanfare that Frank Bruno got, a lot of the fanfare that Lennox Lewis got. You know, a lot of people anticipating him being the next great UK world heavyweight champion. And we'll see if it happens for him. But if he gets this win tomorrow, it'll get him one step closer to getting the ultimate goal, and that's becoming a heavyweight champion. Because if he gets this win, and Anthony Joshua defeats Kubrat Pulev on December the 12th and decides to not take on his WBO obligation and in fighting the WBO mandatory number one contender, Alexander Usyk, that title will then become vacant. And the top two rankings in the WBO is Alexander Usyk at number one and Daniel Dubois at number two. So if Anthony Joshua decides to bypass the matchup with Usyk and take on Tyson Fury for number one supremacy in the heavyweight division, then we will see Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois for the WBO heavyweight title. So that's how big this fight is this Saturday. And if Joe Joyce can get the win, I'm pretty much sure he'll be in line. He'll be on the top of a lot of lists to fight the champions Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, or maybe he becomes a available contender to fight Alexander Usyk for the vacant WBO heavyweight title. Because I believe he's ranked, if I'm not mistaken, he's ranked in the top 15 in the WBO. And I think you've got to be ranked in the top 15 to qualify to fight for the WBO title. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires. But for this particular matchup, it's a very good stylistic matchup. You got a pressure fighter in Joe Joyce. This guy is robotic. He's robotic. He's not fast. He's slow as molasses. But he's a guy that throws a lot of punches. He throws more punches than any heavyweight in the division. He throws a lot of punches. He's got a motor that doesn't stop. He's got the highest motor. He's got the motor that you can't turn off. You know, most heavyweights don't average a lot of punches. You look at a Deontay Wilder or even a Luis Ortiz, those guys are calculated in what they throw per round. But Joe Joyce is not trying to do none of that. He's throwing punches. He's throwing punches. He's willing to eat punches to get off his punches. He's willing to take a punch to land two punches. The guy is a very fan-friendly fighter, and he's got a solid chin. But the question is, can his chin hold up to the puncher that Daniel Dubois is? Daniel Dubois is a generational puncher. He's got what they call special power. You know, you got guys that got good power, like Anthony Joshua, he got good power. Who else got good power? Luis Ortiz got good power. But you got the once-in-a-generational type of power, like a Deontay Wilder. He's got once-in-a-generational type of power. Ernie Shavers, he had once-in-a-generational type of power. George Foreman had once-in-a-generational type of power. Sonny Liston had once-in-a-generational type of power. Mike Tyson had once-in-a-generational type of power. Now, Daniel Dubois, that's the question. Does he have once-in-a-generational type of power? Now, the reason why I asked that question is his resume is just real thin. He hasn't fought any average heavyweights, contenders. Most of the people he's fought are C- at best heavyweight contenders. C-, D+D level heavyweight contenders. He hasn't fought C level in my opinion. He hasn't fought anybody. To me, he hasn't even fought one top 50 heavyweight in my opinion on his resume. He hasn't. He just hasn't. But he's knocked all those guys out in devastating fashion. And he seems to have that special generational type of power, but I kind of got to be kind of hesitant just to give him that until he does it against a top-level fighter. If he sleeps Joe Joyce, then I can put him up there and start having this discussion and having debate, say, oh, man, this dude's got special power. Maybe we got to put him up there with the Mike Tysons of the world, the Deontay Wilders of the world, the Ernie Shavers of the world, the George Foremans of the world. Maybe we have to start putting him up there with those guys if he's able to knock out a guy like a Joe Joyce. Because Joe Joyce, one thing about him is he might be slow as molasses, but he has a strong chin and he has a motor that don't stop running. The guy's going to bring the pressure, he's going to bring the heat, and he's going to see if you can sustain the heat. The kitchen's going to get hot for Daniel Dubois. It's going to be a matter of, is he going to be able to stand the heat, or is he going to be running out the kitchen looking to go to the living room? And if that's the case, Joe Joyce is going to break him down like he did all his opponents and stop him, in my opinion, somewhere between the middle to late part of that fight. That was going to boil down to now. If he can't, if he's got that generation type of power, and his power is on the level of the fighters I just mentioned, then he's going to sleep Joe Joyce, and he's going to sleep him early. That's the one thing about Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce defense is nothing to write home about. He's going to get hit, and it's going to boil down to that. Can Joe Joyce take Daniel Dubois' power? If he can take his power and take them shots and keep pushing forward and getting off his shots, then Daniel Dubois is going to be in for a long and painful night. And I think he's going to end up getting stopped late in that fight. Now, I'm going to break this fight down. I'm going to give you the way I think the fight's going to end up going. I gave you two different scenarios of how this fight could play out. Now, Joe Joyce is a guy that's been in there with better competition than Daniel Dubois. He's been in there with former heavyweight champions on his resume. He's been in there with Bermane Stiverne. He's been in there with a little bit better competition than Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois don't even have a Bermane Stiverne on his resume. And I'm talking about over the hill, past his prime, Bermane Stiverne that fought Joe Joyce. He was even better than anybody that's on Daniel Dubois' resume. Now, Daniel Dubois, in his last couple of fights, he hasn't looked as dynamic as he looked in earlier fights. But I don't know if that had to do with him just being bored. He's ready to fight the elite and the top fighters in the heavyweight division. He's tired of fighting these C- and D+ level fighters. He's ready to get in there with the top level heavyweights, and maybe he'll go back to what he did in his previous fights before his last two performances. If we get that Daniel Dubois, then he's got a chance to sleep and knock out Joe Joyce. He's got a chance to put Joe Joyce to sleep without the NyQuil. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires. But this is a much anticipated heavyweight division matchup. This fight is going to set the stage and set the table for a lot of potential big-time fights in the future for either one of these guys if they're victorious come Saturday night in the UK. Now, Daniel Dubois, he's got to show me a little bit of versatility to his game. He's got to show me now, just say for the fact he catches Joe Joyce with some hard shots and Joe Joyce ain't going nowhere. Daniel Dubois got to show that he can, okay, I got a plan B. My power is not going to just get me home tonight. I got to be able to do something else. I got to be able to rely on something else besides my power. He's got to show that he can box. He's got the faster hands, so he's ought to be able to use his jab, get his combination shots, get in and get out, move around the ring. He's got better footwork. Both guys don't have great footwork, but I think Daniel Dubois' footwork is slightly better than Joe Joyce. But I don't think any of these guys have the footwork of, say, a Luis Ortiz or even a Deontay Wilder, guys that have great, or Tyson Fury. None of these guys are on the level of those three, in my opinion. But Joe Joyce has slow hands, but he has to me he kind of reminds me. He's almost like the heavyweight version of Triple G. He doesn't have quick feet, but he's got strategic movement in his feet. He gets into position to get his shots off. And one thing about Joe Joyce is he's able to get you up against the ropes and get his shots off. His shots are not, he doesn't have one hit or quitter power, but he's got thumping, thudding power. His punches hurt. They might not get you out there in one time, but it's like a rain on a rock. It's like, you know, when a rain constantly hits a rock, even as hard as that rock is, if that rain constantly hit that rock for 40 days and 40 nights, as we say it in the Bible. If that rain constantly hitting that rock, that rain's going to eventually penetrate that rock. And that rock is going to start to melt, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what Joe Joyce does. He just raining on you. He just constantly hitting you with punches. And eventually you get to the point where, man, I don't want to get hit no more, man. I'm finna succumb to the barrage that he's putting on me at this point. And that's what Joe Joyce is able to do to his opponents. Now, Joe Joyce cannot, at any instance, at any situation, be backing up in this fight. If he get caught with a shot and he gets hurt, he gets dazed, and he starts to fight backing up, he's dead man walking. He's a come forward type of fighter. Can't fight off the back foot whatsoever. If he's the one backing up and Daniel Dubois got him backing up, hitting him with hard shots, got him backing up, then this fight is not going to go long, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Dubois is going to dominate and ultimately stop Joe Joyce. So Joe Joyce knows he's got to put Daniel Dubois on the back foot. He's got to back him up. If the fight's in the middle of the ring, that plays into the hand of Daniel Dubois because he's got the faster hands. He's got the quicker feet. So this fight's gonna come down to real estate. If you see this fight, if you see this fight happening, and you see Daniel Dubois on the ropes, back against the ropes, or close to the ropes, you know, on the back foot, you know, trying to react to off of what Joe Joyce is doing, Daniel Dubois is in for a long, painful night, ladies and gentlemen. But if you see Joe Joyce backing up, which I haven't seen in any of his fights, I haven't seen him fight at all backing up. But if you, for some reason, see him backing up in this fight, that means that he's got caught with some punches that has got his respect and has either hurt him or dazed him, and he's got to back up, and he's not sure if he wants to come forward at that point in time, and that's going to play into the hands of Daniel Dubois, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a much anticipated matchup, and I think it's going to come down to, I think Daniel Dubois got the faster hands. I think he's going to be able to get off the hardest shots. I think Joe Joyce has a solid chin, but he hasn't been in with the puncher that he's going to be in with tomorrow night against versus Daniel Dubois. Bermain Stavern didn't have the power of Daniel Dubois. None of the fighters that Joe Joyce has fought have the hand speed or the power of Daniel Dubois. So I think ultimately Daniel Dubois is going to catch Joe Joyce. I think he's going to catch him with some devastating shots. And I see him hurting hurting Joe Joyce. And I see a 7th round knockout for Daniel Dubois. I think he catches him with a overhand right, left hook, combination of punches. Being the faster fighter, the guy with the fast twitch muscles, as Max Kellerman of Max on Boxing says, he has the faster twitch muscle, and I think that'll pay off, and the hand speed will pay off in the, in my opinion, generational power that he has. Even though he hasn't done it on this stage, I believe he does have that. That's going to be interesting to see. Will he be like Anthony Yard, that being Daniel Dubois? Anthony Yard was a guy that was looking strong, man, beating guys. Like he had devastating hand speed and devastating power, but he hadn't fought nobody. Then he got in there with the crusher, Sergey Kovalev. And he had Sergey Kovalev in serious trouble. Had him on the brink of being stopped. Had him on the edge of that cliff. He just needed a nudge to push him off that cliff and fall into oblivion. And he wasn't able to get that job done in the 8th round. He tired out. And Sergey Kovalev beat him on experience. Beat him on being in there with high caliber of competition, being on that big stage and being in those deep waters, being in those shark-infested waters, being in those choppy waters. Sergey Kovalev had been in them type of waters, and Anthony Yard had not been in those type of waters, and that's what played out on that big stage, and Sergey Kovalev was ultimately able to end up stopping exhausted Anthony Yard. Well, that happened with Daniel Dubois. Will he fade after 3 or 4 rounds? I'm saying he's gonna knock him out in 7th round. So I'm saying that his he looks like to me he's in unbelievable shape, like he's ready to go. He's had a long training camp, So his stamina should be good. He should be able to go a long fight if he have to. And I think that'll be the case. But like I said, he's never been on this big stage before. The competition he's fought to this point has been lackluster at best. So will he be able to get past the third round when Joe Joyce is still there? He ain't knocked out or put to sleep like his past opponents. We getting around 4. Joe Joyce is still there. He's not knocked out like those other opponents on Daniel Dubois' resume, who are, in my opinion, C- or lower level fighters. We get to the 5th round, the 6th round, the 7th round. Joe Joyce is still there. What would Daniel Dubois' mindset be? That's going to play a part in this fight too. Will he still be confident? He'd be like, damn, I hit this guy with all my shots. This guy's not going nowhere. What can I do? I don't have a plan B. My power has brought me to this point. That's going to be a question that's going to need to be answered and need to be asked and answered in that ring this Saturday between Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. I'm very much looking forward to this particular matchup between Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. But I got Daniel Dubois by 7th round knockout as his power carries him through. Athletic ability carries him through. His faster hands carries him through. Determined. A guy that throws punches and bunches. A guy that's robotic, but a guy that has a motor that don't stop running, and Joe Joyce, who's going to put up a good fight and is going to test Daniel Dubois. He's going to hit Daniel Dubois with some shots. He's not going to go down with the first hard shot that he takes from Daniel Dubois. But I think ultimately the power would be a little bit too much, and the lack of defense would be a little bit too much for Joe Joyce to overcome. And I'm looking for Daniel Dubois to win this fight by 7th round knockout. Let me know what your thoughts in the comment section. Who you like in this fight? Who you like, Daniel Dubois, the young, undefeated heavyweight contender? Do you like the not so young, undefeated heavyweight contender, Joe Joyce? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Who you got in this fight? If you think it's going to go to decision or you think it's going to be a knockout, let me know who you got in this particular matchup. This is JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. I holla.